My granddad always used to say, sometimes it's not necessarily the credentials of the person, it's the person themselves and the way they talk about themselves and the way they come across that's really important.
That a lot of people don't reach their true potential because they find themselves in this trap. Passion drives people. Yeah, I think an idea you're not passionate about, if it's a great, give me a great idea that I'm not passionate about, I'll still want to make a load of money out of it. I'll want to deliver on it. I was bankrupt less than 12 months ago. I want to go bankrupt to billionaire in 3 years. Yeah, so it's a ballsy move. We got a phone call and they said, we've got a house you can live in, you know, so it's like from absolute zero, to get that bloody call, and it just completely bailed us out of the shit. So you find out who your real friends are. Pressure's an important thing because I perform best in a absolutely backs against the wall, guns against the head situation.
Matt, thank you so much for coming on to Triangle Theory podcast.
Really glad to be here. Great to meet you again.
It's amazing to have you here, and it's really, really cool. I wanted to kind of start the podcast by reflecting your mind back and sort of ask you when you sort of first started to look at the world through sort of like the entrepreneurial lens, because I feel that even sort of growing up, you sort of look at things a bit differently, and I think it's really interesting to start there from where you sort of maybe started to view the world where you can sort of, you saw opportunity or you saw a chance for you to grow.
I think as a kid, I did the whole thing of this lemonade stand out on the street and selling sweets to my mates at school, and that whole thing, which I think lots of people have got that backstory when they're entrepreneurs. That's sort of fairly natural process to go through, but I don't think everybody then follows that through into adulthood. I think when I was about 19, I was living with Del, who's now my wife. Delis is a full name, which means loved one in Welsh, and she is very loved.
That's amazing.
But we were living together at the time. We were actually living together in Llandudno in North Wales, because she was doing a PGCE there, and we came up with this business idea, which was, bear in mind this is, I don't know, it'd be more than 25 years ago. It'd be 27, 28 years ago. And I'd seen something in some sort of historical TV program, and I think it was sort of early 1900s, and it was, someone was getting their shopping delivered. You know, they'd gone to a shop, chosen the things, and then the boy with the bicycle was delivering the shopping. And we said, well, why can't you get your shopping delivered? Why do you have to go to the supermarket? Wouldn't it be, you know, really good, convenient, if you could actually have your shopping delivered? It was like really, really early internet days, this. We didn't have a computer, didn't know how to use the internet or send email or anything, didn't have mobile phones. Most people watching this could barely believe that was a real time. But we thought, well, actually you should be able to have your shopping delivered. This is a business, we can make millions of pounds. Let's start a shopping delivery business. How do we do it? So we go to Marks and Spencer's, like literally the shop, you know, knock on the manager's door, and we're sat down talking about this shopping delivery business.
That's amazing.
You know, we ended up meeting somebody from head office about this shopping delivery business, and they essentially went, it'll never work. And if I'm not mistaken, it was a couple of years later, or 3 or 4 years later, that they actually started the early form of that, you know, and then gradually that sort of picked up from there to what we know now. And I suppose the ultimate extension to that now is Deliveroo and Uber Eats and all these things. And you know, I'm not taking credit for shopping delivery, but I suppose what Del and I have consistently done is always try to identify problems. It's all about supply and demand. You know, and demand comes from a problem. You know, if there is a need for good street food, you know, in the Mexican genre like you do.
Yeah.
Then there's a demand there. That's a problem. You can't get enough of it.
Of course.
Therefore, if you open an outlet selling it, you've got a good opportunity to create the supply. Yeah. So we were just spotting a problem there, and that's probably one of the earliest sort of genuine attempts at it, I suppose.
No, it's amazing. And then sort of from that journey, was that sort of what, when you were sort of looking at the coffee business, was that sort of another sort of problem that you were looking at and sort of identifying, okay, there's clearly maybe a demand there, and this is before I feel like coffee really sort of took off, that you sort of started your coffee business?
Yeah, so obviously America's had this specialty coffee thing, feels like forever compared to the UK. I was working as a sales rep for a big coffee machine and coffee bean company, so a proper coffee company.
Mm-hmm.
I'd done a lot of training in. Let me turn.
No worries.
It's all right. No worries.
Binging. Put it on the do not disturb bit. That's cool. So I was working as a sales rep at a big coffee company. Done a load of training in Italy and in Holland in the roasteries, sort of learning about proper coffee, you know, how they take the beans and process the beans, and then creating blends, and you know, and tasting them, and then how to make great coffee. And through this process, I ended up being National Accounts Manager.
Hey guys, thank you so much for making it this far into the podcast. If you have any feedback, then please let us know, as we always want to make this podcast better. So hearing from you is always a pleasure. Please subscribe to all of our platforms, get involved at Triangle Theory. If you've got any comments, or if you want to share any topics that you think that me and Conrad would like to talk about, then please get involved. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much.
Funny story. I was the sales rep, and I wanted the National Accounts Manager's job, and they wouldn't give it me. I knew I was good enough for it, and I was like, well, fuck that. I applied for a National Accounts Manager's job at a competitor company. I lied about, on my CV, I said that I'd got a degree in sports science from Sheffield University. Now, I've got a very good background in sports science, because I've read a stack of books this high, and I used to write all the training articles for On the Edge magazine, which is a big climbing magazine when I was a sports climber. So I knew sports physiology inside out. Could have probably passed the degree if I'd really been pushed, and I knew that I could blag my way through any interview if anybody asked me a question about sports physiology. So I'm in this interview, and it's going great, and I'm clearly going to get the job. And the guy goes, "Oh, I noticed you were at Sheffield University." I was like, "Yeah. So was I." "Oh, right, great. Yeah, and I'm cool at this point. Yeah, I did sports physiology too." And at this point, my temperature's going up. And I'm thinking, and then he goes, yeah, I was in the year above you. And I'm like, and now I'm sort of, you know, the room's nearly sideways at this point, and I'm having to keep my cool. And then he starts talking about some of the lecturers on the course. So I'm really having to blag about it. And he even sort of, I think at one point talks about, you know, Mr. Johnson's dog who he used to bring into lectures and things. And I'm, yeah, absolutely. You know, just trying to go along with the whole thing. But I did get the job. I didn't take the job because I thought, shit, I've lied to him. I better not go in that direction. So I went back to the other company, said I've got this job. They gave me the National Accounts Manager's job. So that was all good. It's not like pretending to be a doctor. Not saying you've got medical science or whatever and you want to be a doctor. That's out of order, but I didn't consider it to be a real problem.
It's funny because like kind of going on that was my granddad always used to say, sometimes it's not necessarily the credentials of the person, it's the person themselves and the way they talk about themselves and the way they come across that's really important, you know. And I really get that from you. Sorry, you're gonna.
Yeah, I guess that's what you see sometimes now, that like people don't really look at the degrees anymore. Like employers especially, they just see what kind of person you are, and then they tend to hire based on that, unless there's a huge corporation that they really need to have a degree in.
Yeah, I think it's definitely evolving in that direction. And when I recruit people, I'm really not interested in what qualifications they've got. You know, I'm not. There are certain things about the schooling system that are good in that they do help people socialise and they learn how to deal with other people. But I'm not a big believer in conventional education, and I think it's far better to get out there in the real world. The only thing I really want for my kids in the education system really is to come out happy and confident.
Exactly.
Because unless you want to be a lawyer or a doctor or something else, just being happy and confident, you're much more likely to be able to achieve at most things.
Massively.
Yeah,
I totally agree, because I think school, even if I kind of cast my mind back to school, it was like it was never really a place that kind of championed communication, which is such a vital skill in itself. You're very much told off. You have to conform to a timetable. You've got loads of work to take home that's not even at school, like that you're not doing at school. And I felt that it wasn't kind of gearing you up for life in that sense. It felt like just a sort of retention of information to then sort of put that on a piece of paper. And I didn't feel like that kind of connected with what the real human experience was.
And that retention of information, once upon a time, was a really important skill.
Yeah.
If you didn't have the internet in your pocket. Yeah.
Totally.
Now, why do I want to retain loads of stuff which might be useful once in my life if I'm lucky, but maybe it's useful once, but actually give me 10 seconds and I'll look that up.
Yeah.
Now I've got it. The skill now is how to ask the right questions.
Yeah.
You know, and that might be whether you're on Google or whether you're on ChatGPT. You know, it's about how do you create a good prompt, isn't it?
Yeah.
I wanted to ask as well, like, as you at the beginning of the episode, you mentioned that you went that route of selling lemonade, selling candies, and where majority of people were doing it. But then you also mentioned that you didn't go to uni, which majority of people went to uni. Do you think that going through that school system and through universities kind of kills that drive and natural ego to become entrepreneurial?
I do. I think it's a really good point, because I think what happens is you almost have it drilled out of you, because the schooling system, it was really built for Victorian factory workers.
Yeah.
You know, teach everybody to turn up on time. No, that's a good skill. I get that. But it's do as I say, not as I do. Yeah. That's great for factory workers. Yeah. And no disrespect to factory workers, but you know, 100 years ago, that's what we needed. Loads and loads and loads of factory workers and cheap labour.
Yeah.
And that's what the school system, it's not entirely doing that, but it's still hanging on to that.
Yeah.
And it's still 30 years behind. It's not in the iPhone generation. Education's not even caught up to the start of the iPhone generation. And now we're on iPhone 15. You know? Christ, where's ChatGPT and OpenAI and you know, and large language models? Where are they going to be in 5 years' time? It's going to be epic, absolutely epic. And the school system is going to be exponentially behind at that point.
Exactly.
Yeah,
you
totally.
know? And the fact that you go to school and they say, no, you're not allowed to use ChatGPT to write your essays. It's like, for fuck's sake, grow up.
Yeah.
You know, we need people with those skills. Need people to know how to use a sharp knife. Not be afraid of it because they're going to stab somebody. Because a sharp knife is not just a dangerous weapon; it's also an amazing tool. You know, you teach people to use tools.
It's such a valid point, because, like you're saying, it's not keeping up with those times, and even now, like, you can literally start a business on your phone. You know, you can start a business through Instagram and make connections with people, not just locally but all over the world. And
well, perfect example how we met. It's just through people who were on the same platform.
Absolutely.
And I think that it is short-sighted of schools not to see that or try and implement that as quick as possible. I think education is such a important thing in order for the future generations to grow, but also be ready and engage with the world that they can engage with, not sort of jump to something because maybe it's overwhelming. And I feel, especially for me, I felt sort of someone that was going against the grain, that didn't go to university, and maybe that was, I felt at the time, was that even a right decision? Because everyone else was doing it. But even talking to my sister that went and did a university degree, I think the parts that she found most enjoyable was being able to be more independent and live with her friends, not necessarily the course itself.
And that's the best thing about uni.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, for people who don't know what they actually want to do, I think university can be a great thing to find yourself and have your moment to become a real fully grown human. You know, and learn how the world works and have some level of independence.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. But I think it can beat the life out of you as well.
Yeah, massively.
Because the other challenge is that the system, if you like, has a vested interest in keeping down what I call the warrior class. Yeah. So there's certain sort of what's the right word? Like a theorists, if you like.
Like someone that's sort of like an out of the box thinker. In a sense.
Philosophers. That's the
Okay,
word.
fine.
That's the word. So there's certain philosophies and philosophies that would suggest that we're only ever 24 hours a day from rioting. Yeah, on a grand scale. Yeah. Now rioting normally occurs from the warrior class, which I would call the youth, really. Probably more male. Yeah, between 18 and 30, and that's sort of an inbuilt thing that if the system is not working well for people, they want to get up and fight about it. Yeah, they want to change things. And that's not good for status quo, for governments and the system. So I think the system, which includes education, is about creating this sort of situation where you're almost in indentured servitude. Yeah, where you've got a mortgage. Totally. Yeah, you're stuck. When you've got a mortgage and you've got to pay a mortgage, well, you can't go rioting, can you? Because you won't be able to pay your mortgage and you'll lose your house. If you've got a wife and a child, well, you can't go rioting and changing the world. So and I'm not saying people are sat around in rooms making this up to absolutely oppress us or anything like that. It's more it just sort of happens, and it sort of works in keeping the status quo, but I think it means that a lot of people don't reach their true potential because they find themselves in this trap. This money trap where they've got a car and a car payment and they're just getting by to pay their bills, etc. And rather than focusing on setting up a new business, they're focused on just scraping by. The problem is just scraping by ends up being a permanent scenario because they don't realise that inflation is eating away at their money. Wages are not going up, so the net effect of their spending potential is going through the floor, and it's why everybody walks around scratching their head going, why can't I afford stuff now like I used to be able to? I'm actually earning a bit more money, but it's not going as far.
Do you think there's like a sweet spot? Because obviously looking at individuals where they might have taken out a mortgage, they've got kids, their level of risk might be like, it'd be too much for me to start a business now and I've got people that depend on me. But sort of capturing those people that maybe their level of risk is far less. I mean, anyone can start a business at any given time, and I do think it's sort of down to you, the person, to sort of push through those barriers. But when you're sort of looking at, or if you're looking at this as like a problem, do you think that there is a perfect time to start a business, sort of maybe before uni? Or
I think it helps a lot if you don't have kids.
Yeah,
it's much easier. But I think also that's one of the reasons why we're going to have a massive surge in businesses, because, you know, millennials are either delaying kids a lot longer, or many less millennials are having kids.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
sorry, just to cut you there, I read an article on the BBC recently that by 40%, 30-year-olds are having less children than it was in our grandparents' era. So they're actually, the governments aren't funding schools as much. There was a school in Brighton that recently closed because there wasn't enough kids in there.
Yeah, I mean, we're approaching a population problem where we're going to have a population drop, which will create all sorts of social issues.
Yeah.
However, what it will probably do, it's one of the drivers in me starting my current business, is I believe that that drop in the birth rate, because of millennials not having as many kids, is going to create a surge in new small businesses. And it's a bit like after the Second World War, you know, we have what they call the baby boomers, because they all didn't have much else to do, so there was a lot of shagging going on, and there was a knock-on boom a short period after, where you get a massive birth surge, and that creates another set of social positives and social pressures and things. And there's an amazing book called The Fourth Turning, which goes into a phenomenal amount of depth about all these sort of cyclical happenings, like the baby boom, and how power shifts and how political power shifts. It was written, I think it was written back in '85, and it was talking about all the turnings, which are the different phases in history, and it effectively plots out the next 50 years or whatever, and therefore that book was written plotting out this period that we're going through right now. And if you read the book, you just read it, or listening to it, depending on how you consume your books these days. You're reading the book, and it's just phenomenal how it is actually just happening like that. You know, the way the cycles are working. But I think, back to your original point, absolutely 100% yes. The you know, going to university, not having kids, that totally changes the appetite risk for people to do a business. So if it goes wrong, so many less problems.
Totally. And it's not even like you wouldn't be able to recover if it does go wrong, because there's a lot of it. I think maybe there are social pressures from people where they feel like they might need to have these certain things by when they reach 30 or 40 or things like that, and
which is high pressure with social media now.
Totally. Like, for example, when I started my business at 22, I remember saying to my brother, at the time where we kind of saved a bit of money, where my mum was like, you should put a deposit on a house, and that would have been a realistic, sort of sensible thing to do. But I said, that can come at any time. What won't come is I won't be able to have the risk to start a business anytime. But I wanted to ask, like, you've got a really keen eye for emerging patterns and problems, and sort of from coffee to identifying, I guess, sort of like in the dot-com era and sort of the tech sort of space, you were sort of looking at property in terms of that being a place for people to look at property. Into your current business, where you want to make millionaires, what do you think people should be looking for now that maybe want to start a business? What sort of problems do you think people should be trying to solve, essentially?
It's a really good question. I think most of the same problems are still there. It's just, you know, historically things just get improved incrementally. People do a better job. Very often, you know, problems that are being solved today have a solution. It's just not as good as the next solution is going to be. So I don't think it's difficult to find a problem to solve. I think generally it's well worth trying to look for a problem to solve that's close to home. So you're in the food service industry. Yeah, you know the food service industry inside out. So logically, in that scenario, it's if you can spot a problem in the food service industry, it's probably a real problem. The big problem is if another individual who's not in the food service industry says, "I've spotted a food service industry problem," well, he might have done. He probably doesn't know enough about it in the first place for it actually to be a problem, and you have to validate that problem. Yeah, you have to validate whether it's a real thing, and this is a big issue that I've had in my life is idea validation. Yeah, and it's an absolutely critical process that people need to go through, and I don't think most people don't quite understand it, because they'll come up with a business idea and they'll go, "This is a great idea, I should do it. Do you think I should do it?" Yeah, one person validates it, it must be real.
Is that some sort of a synergy you have between your wife and yourself? Because you mentioned that Dole is person who gives you ideas and then you kind of validate them, or kind of explain why it wouldn't work.
100%. So we'll it's part of a sort of a family thing that we have when we all sit around to dinner. You know, so there's 5 of us with our 3 kids, and it'll typically be this sort of mash of new business ideas every day. Not us forcing them to do it. It's just like, "I've spotted this problem, and here's an idea, and we could do that, and we do that." And it's like, eventually your head's about to explode because there's so many ideas. But we sort of take it in turns to rip the ideas apart.
Nice.
Because if you can quickly rip an idea apart, trash it, move on to the next one, that's not to be mean. It's just to go, not a real problem, move on. There's no harm in that. You know, it's a safe space, if you like, to talk about those things. My daughter, when she was 6 years old, she said, "I've got this great idea." So what is it? Well, why don't dentists have pineapple flavoured dental gloves? Yeah, because they're pushing their fingers in your mouth and they always taste horrible. Yeah. So I think, "Daddy, we should have pineapple flavoured dental gloves." What a great idea.
Yeah, amazing.
Really, really good idea from a consumer perspective, from a child's perspective. Whether it's commercially viable, I don't know. But it's that sort of idea: spot a problem, solve it. Yeah? But the validation piece, I think the real issue there is, you know, around the table we can validate it within 5 people. My wife and I can probably help validate it more because we're older, we're experienced entrepreneurs, so therefore we've had more understanding. So we can spot the shortfalls. No, that idea won't have enough profit margin, or no, that idea is, you know, economically not viable, or any number of things. Most people don't have that experience. So what you need then is you need validation from people in that particular field, or a large number of people to give validation, because only then is it really good to push forward with an idea. It's so easy, and I've done it loads of times, so easy with an idea to believe your own bullshit. This is great, it's going to make us a fortune, it's going to solve the world's problems, and then you spend all this time and quite often all this money getting it so far, and then go, "Shit, it's not going to work. I wish I'd asked that guy beforehand." Or I wish I'd asked those 30 people beforehand, or I wish I'd tried to sell it before I had it. The critical thing about validation of an idea is to go out to a larger audience and find out do other people agree with you, because if they do, you're probably onto something.
Totally.
And that's what we do with our new UPitch app. One of the key things is allowing people to validate their idea at 0 cost. So we've just brought their risk base down to nothing, apart from maybe an hour's work, putting a pitch together, and then they can put it on the platform and get it validated.
What sort of business do you allow to have a pitch on your platform, or any industries?
Absolutely anything, as long as it's legal.
Yeah.
Then they can go on the platform.
And for those sorts of like those sort of like, because you're encouraging ideas and you're encouraging people to engage with the platform and sort of put their ideas out there. For those that have ideas that may come across those that sort of might say, oh, that idea is not very good, and still want to pursue it, how much do you think someone should push an idea until, without getting too disheartened, you know? Because I think that's also can be a struggle for some people.
Hey guys, your feedback is very important. And no, this is not an advertisement. Actually, what I'm asking from you is to leave a comment below what you liked and most importantly, what you disliked about this episode, because we can improve on the next episodes and we can make a better content for you to listen. Give us also a topics you'd like to us talking about, and we can prepare, do your research and talk about it on the next episodes. Thank you.
It's a difficult one, because some ideas other people don't think are a good idea until you make it a good idea. They think you're a nutter until you're not.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we all know there are some of those ideas out there.
Yeah.
Bitcoin is a case in point. 10 years ago, if you were into Bitcoin, you were an absolute nutter.
Yeah.
To the rest of the world. Yeah. But actually, you were probably the cleverest person out there if you were into it 10 years ago. 5 years ago, you were still a bit of a nutter, but pretty clever. Now, every man and his dog's like, yeah, Bitcoin's great. Donald Trump, yeah, Bitcoin's great. The rest, and in 5 years' time, it'll be totally mainstream. Yeah. That's an extreme example.
Sure.
If you'd have gone out for validation at that point 10 years ago, everyone would have said, no, it'll never work. Yeah. My son at the time was, when Bitcoin came out, was, 10 years old, 12 years old. Dad, there's this thing, you should buy some. It's like, it's never going to work.
Yeah.
It was 20 pence at the time. Now it's, I don't know, $65,000.
Yeah.
So, I consider myself to be a shrewd, sharp individual, but I still didn't spot it so early.
Yeah, of course.
So validation's a tricky one.
It's one I think people have to kind of manage within themselves in a way. So let's say you got an idea, it's getting validated, and you feel like it's going to go somewhere and people think it's going to go somewhere. What are the processes that people should be looking at after that? When it sort of comes, is it sort of writing a business plan, or is it?
Okay, well, to give you an idea of, because it'll give you a simple explanation, the platform that we're building, the UPitch app, essentially it's Shark Tank, yeah, or Dragon's Den as we have in the UK. The Americans have Shark Tank. It's Shark Tank meets TikTok, so video discovery, yeah, meets Tinder. So it's a matching platform, and essentially it matches entrepreneurs with ideas at pre-validation stage or beyond, yeah, or you could have an existing idea, and it matches them with investors who want to invest. But those investors might want to invest money, they might want to invest time, they might want to invest skill, or they might want to invest influence. So what we've done is, effectively, we're trying to democratize entrepreneurialism and angel investment. So anyone can be an investor, because everyone's got skills. Lots of people have got influence on some level, whether it's specific people they know, or with a podcast, you have influence to a broader audience. Yeah. Everyone's got time that they can give to something, and some people have got money they can give to something and invest. And in return, you can have equity in something from putting in one of those factors. So the idea is, we come up with a business idea today. We think it's a brilliant idea, the three of us. Yeah, it's in the food service industry. You tell us the idea, and I think I can help you execute it, and it's brilliant. But is it a good idea? So we go, well, I'll tell you what, let's put a pitch on UPitch, on the UPitch app. All we have to do, at the very least, we put a 30-second video pitch together, which would be pretty easy. We've got a good podcast set up here. We can do that quickly. Put a 30-second pitch on, which is selling our experience, if you like. We're on there, hi guys, this is the experience we've got. He's in the food service industry. I'm an experienced entrepreneur. He's a great sales guy. We've got the team to make this happen. Yeah, swipe right, and you can check out all the details. And they swipe right, they can see the executive summary. They see a longer video, see how much money we want and what and why, etc. And at that point, we put it on the platform, and you can have thousands of people swipe through the ideas on the platform like you would TikTok, but instead of looking at crap, you can look at business ideas. Yeah. Soon as somebody swipes right, it creates a non-disclosure agreement for all that deeper information. Yeah. So our idea has got some level of protection, but people can like the idea, they can save the idea, they can say, I think this idea is great. I'm in the food service industry, but have you thought of this? Yeah. Eventually, you build up a body of people liking what you've got and giving you constructive feedback, and now we're feeling pretty confident. Yeah. So now we're in a much better position to be able to push forward. Yeah. And then when somebody's, commenting, well, actually, yeah, let's have a meeting because I'm interested in investing in this idea or discussing it further, then you've got the link then to those people who may have money, they may have influence, they may have skills. Yeah. And, therefore you can put a team together at that point.
That's fascinating. When you choose a business, do you think it's important to be passionate about it? Or if you find a gap in the market, even though you're not, as an example, if you're not passionate about food industry, but you found this beautiful gap in the market that you want to execute and you get good feedback on it, but you're not really passionate about it, do you think it's still good to get into that industry, or you should look something that you generally like?
It's a really, really good question, because I think passion drives people. Yeah, I think an idea you're not passionate about, if it's a great, give me a great idea that I'm not passionate about, I'll still want to make a load of money out of it. I'll want to deliver on it, and I'll probably become passionate because it's a good idea, and everybody, if you've got a good idea, it probably means that when you try and sell it, everybody goes, yeah, I'll buy that off you. You can get pretty passionate about that quite quickly, particularly as a salesperson.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm proud to say I'm a salesperson as well, and not enough salespeople say they're proud about it. Yeah, and it's a good skill.
It's the best job.
It's a good skill. It's a critical skill. So I think you can learn to be passionate about something. However, it's really hard to be passionate about something that you're not interested in and is not working as well as you want. And the chances of making that work are really slim. So I think it's far better. I think just rolling back, I think it's far better to be passionate about something, because I think you've got much more likelihood of succeeding, because you've got to see yourself through the dark times. You've got to see this through the times when you're skint or it's not working or you're banging your head against a wall and you have to pivot the idea slightly. If you're passionate, you'll probably be able to work through that. However, if you're passionate about a crap idea, it's not going to work. It's still going to be a crap idea. You're probably just going to make hardly any money and spend a long time banging your head against a wall.
Have you ever been in those shoes where you're so passionate about the idea, it just simply doesn't work, and you already went a long road towards that idea? Yeah,
I've definitely, without a doubt. I think I've got this theory that every entrepreneur, I think everyone can be an entrepreneur, by the way, but not everyone is an entrepreneur. But every entrepreneur that chooses to be one, I reckon, has got about 10 ideas in them, over a lifespan, because most ideas take a while to work their way through. Now, of those 10 ideas, you probably, I hope, agree with me that maybe 2 or 3 of those 10 might be good. Yeah, there might be, 4 or 5 that are average or below average, and a few that are absolute rubbish. Yeah, the trick is, what sequence do they come in? Because one of the problems is, if you start off, if your first idea is terrible, some people will fail on the first idea and never get back up, ever. Yeah. So they're 9 ideas. They might have the world-beating idea over here at number 9. They never get to it. Yeah. But by the same token, you can do great on your first idea, and for example, I did really, really well on my first 2 ideas. Yeah. So I think I'm Billy Big Balls. Yeah. So number 3, why not risk everything? Yeah, why not risk everything? I don't think I'm risking everything, because the other two were great. Well, so why wouldn't I risk absolutely everything to make it work?
Mm-hmm.
You know, because it's going to work, but it didn't. Yeah, so then you lose everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then you've got to get off your arse and get back up. So the benefit doing number 3, yeah, of massive failure, you know, lose every penny in the whole wide world, kids out of private school, lose the house, lose the cars, every single thing. Yeah. So at that point, that's a big problem. Yeah. However, at least the first 2 have been good. So I go, yeah, I fucked that one up, but I know I can do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll get back up and I'll do number 3. But maybe if number 2 had been bad as well, and I do 2 bad ones in a row, I just go, it's not for me, I'm out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as a 10-time entrepreneur, you never get to the other end. But what happens also with that 10, if this one's bad, yeah, you need to make sure you're not putting everything on the line at that point.
Mm-hmm.
It's so interesting because you think about what it takes in order to sort of cultivate that mindset that makes a great entrepreneur, and a lot of the times it's sort of trying to tell yourself that you do have the skills, you are reliable enough, you can push through adversity in that sense. Do you almost think that having setbacks is a part of the process in order to be better?
Oh yeah,
You know,
100%.
so like, would you ever take any of that back? You know, in a sense.
It's a real tricky one, this, because I would say no, I wouldn't. Del, my wife, would think very differently on that. I think there's probably some things that I would take back, but only if I could learn the lesson, take it back and still have learned the lesson. But the problem is, you take it back in this game we're playing and you don't learn the lesson.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so I don't think you can. I'm a firm believer we are where we are. You know, I am a product of everything that's happened to me,
Yeah.
good and bad, and not everything I've done has been good. You know, I consider generally I'm a good person. I've probably done a few things that are not so good, but they're all a product. They're all create me as who I am now, and I own that. You know, all the mistakes that I've made, the problems that have happened around me, to me, or whatever, they're all my fault. You've got to take ownership of everything, because when you take ownership of everything, you've got control.
Yeah.
That's my view. You know, if you blame other people, you haven't got control over what you do. So I've got to take control of the good and the bad.
Totally. It's like, I think people are very quick to sort of take ownership of the wins, but then when it comes to the losses and the failures, they're very quick to say that might not necessarily have been my fault, or that wasn't in my control. But at the end of the day, it's one of those things that I believe that you have to take charge of in order to sort of look at it as, this isn't a failure, it's an opportunity to have learnt and grow from the situation. And I think that in that sense, it kind of builds you up to do more, because you can say, well, if I've got through that, I can get through this, and I'll take that as a yes, it was a part of the process, but it's allowed me to understand, because I think the human experience is a lot about failure. You know, I think when even if I look at sort of my timeline and things, I try and sort of look at it as, I don't count the good times. I sort of look at it as like, how many times did I fail? Or if I look at someone that's more successful than I am, it's just maybe they just went through more than I did. They just had a bit more failure.
Yeah.
But I think it's a case of looking at entrepreneurs, especially on UPIT, on sort of you talking about your app, it's like making sure that you're not discouraging people when they come against their first obstacle, because that might be a part of the process.
Absolutely.
You know,
100%.
it's always one of those things where it's like, invest at your own risk, but that doesn't make you a bad person. Like, don't take it personally. We all make mistakes, but that's the enjoyment of the game. You know?
Yes. Yeah, and it is a game.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it helps to see it as a game. Sometimes it's a very serious game.
Yeah.
But ultimately it's a game.
Yeah.
I guess having that stack of evidence that you said the first 2 business went well, and then the third one didn't go that well, but you kind of have that stack of evidence that yes, I can actually do things, and that third failure, if you want to call it, or lesson, doesn't really define me that I can't do business anymore. Whereas if the person fails the first 3 times, how could you, I guess that would be my next question, how would you find that belief in yourself that, no, I can still do these things?
It is hard. I think to be fair, whilst the third business failed, it failed from a point of a high success point. So we so the that particular business, it was mobile phone sales. So it was when mobile phones were just taking off. So you got this sort of, you're just moving beyond the Nokia brick. So you just got a colour screen, and then lo and behold, you can take a photo, really grainy sort of colour photo just. And we realised there was an opportunity to sell those online, and we'd done the first, globally the first property search engine. You know, after we'd sold that, we put everything into launching this business selling mobile phones online, and we built it. Essentially, we created what was one of the first affiliate networks. So as we created the infrastructure, the online infrastructure for a phone store, yeah, but you could have Conrad's phone store online. We give you the white label infrastructure. You stick your name across the top. You've got your phone store. Costs you nothing. Yeah. All you've got to do is go out and market it. Anybody who buys a phone, yeah, it comes through us. We then have a fulfillment provider that delivers the phone, pays us a commission, gives you half the commission. Everybody's winning. Yeah, we've got a call center that helps you in the process. So we handle all that sale, and then the fulfillment provider over here.
That sounds like a old version of drop shipping in a way. Is that?
Yeah.
Would you?
Yeah, sort of. I suppose you could have seen us like Alibaba to some degree.
Yeah.
But the challenge was we had one fulfillment provider. Okay, so I had this thought process that because I'd got, 1,000 Conrads with different phone stores all over the internet that were effectively our phone store. You're all earning your commissions. You're doing great. You think I'm brilliant. Customers are all getting their phones. Everything's great. I'm taking a massive check off this guy over here who's doing the fulfillment, and I think this is brilliant. We've got a great business. I've got 50 staff. There's a lot of outgoings to spend on. We've got a proper business infrastructure that we're running. We've got to pay you and the other 1,000 Conrads. Now this business was at its peak was valued at about 50 million quid. So at this point, I'm thinking I'm succeeding. Yeah, this is feeling really good. We're making a lot of money. The problem was this guy over here, the fulfillment provider. Yeah, I'm not even going to mention the name of the company because we had a big legal issue with them. But they're paying us a massive check every month. Yeah, and I think I've got loads of customers, you guys, and all the people we're selling phones to. Problem was, this guy was my only customer, and I didn't realise it. Right? So what happened was, where he's giving us a commission and we split it with you, let's say the commission's 50 quid, yeah, we split that with you. He then comes to me and he says, yeah, we've got a big problem. I said, what's the problem? Everything's running great. He says, the customers, the end consumers, a lot of them are running up enormous phone bills, like to foreign countries, that sort of thing. So what do you mean enormous phone bills? He says, it wasn't him saying it, was one, because it's a massive organisation, one of his people. They're running up 10 grand phone bills. I'm like, who runs up a 10 grand phone bill? You don't come to me for a 10 grand phone bill. You're giving me 50 quid or 100 quid a box. Yeah. I'll give you the 100 quids back for the guys that, we've delivered to you. They're your customers ultimately. I thought they were my customers, but they're his customers. And he said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll just, we'll not pay you a big check until we've sorted this out. Now, when he's paying me a massive chunk of money every month and I'm having to pay a lot of money out to a team that I'm running, and I have to pay all the money out to you guys who are selling phones, this rapidly starts to turn into a massive cash burn, because then we're 2, 3, 4 months down the line, this guy's not written me another massive check, but I'm still running up massive costs. I'm still having to pay you, so all my money's going out to pay you. My business is going down the toilet. What I should have done, what I should have realised, you know, me now I would realise, is I shouldn't have one of him. I should immediately have got another fulfilment partner and work through them, change the terms of the contract. Yeah. Ultimately, this guy put me out of business. Yeah? It's my fault. He put me out of business, but it's my fault because I didn't get the contract right. Yeah, so I take responsibility for what he did. Yeah, he took advantage of the situation. You know, so you live and learn. So third business went to shit, but actually it was a brilliant business.
Yeah.
I just got it wrong.
When you look at sort of within yourself and you say, great business, I made a mistake, I put my hands up, I take responsibility for that, I can learn from that. I think that's a really key quality trait that you need in order to be someone that's really brilliant at what they do, because it'd be so easy for you to go, God, I messed up and that's awful. I feel terrible. I am terrible. What key traits do you feel? No worries.
Just give us a second. Otherwise, I'll struggle for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
There we go. We're good.
I might do the same. What key traits do you feel that entrepreneurs need in order to push through, not even just the failures, but also the triumphs? You know, like what does it take to be someone that's good and great?
I think it's self-belief. You've got to have a massive amount of self-belief. You've also got to have a lot of self-knowledge. So this comes back to spoke about the validation point and whether you think something's a good idea. Excuse me. And whether you think something's a good idea. Somebody can tell you it's not a good idea, but maybe it is. You need self-belief if it's a good idea, but you need self-knowledge to know that if 100 people tell you it's a shit idea, you've got to seriously look into yourself and go, is it, you know, am I the inventor of Bitcoin or not? You know, because if you were, you push on. Yeah. If it was a crap idea, you bin it. Yeah. Knowing that's really hard, but definitely self-belief and self-knowledge, I think, are really, really critical.
And what would you say is the main driver for yourself just to run these businesses where you get to the top, lose everything, then get to the top again, lose everything again, and then there has to be some sort of a driver. Some people say you have to be a little bit insecure to constantly run businesses in a way, because you just want to prove to everyone that I'm better than everyone else, or like I'm not as good as everyone else, but you still want to push through.
The fact I'm smiling, you probably touched a nerve there. Yeah, there's probably some of that. I think part of it is the journey is really good.
Yeah.
So you'll get this because you're in the food service industry. When we had the coffee bars, so we had five coffee bars, you know, sort of, and it was the time there was no specialty coffee bars in the country hardly, and when we did that, we wanted to bring the sort of the American style, sort of New York style specialty coffee bar in, and it was, you know, we thought it was cool at the time, and it was a real journey and an experience, sort of finding the locations and fitting out the shops and getting the design right and doing the branding and getting product market fit for what we were doing. That journey was great. I think when we got into the sort of day-to-day bread and butter, that then starts getting grindy. That's the real business stuff. That's where you actually make your money, you know, and they're two very different tasks. And I think I have learned to be better at the grindy stuff. Yeah. But I think I really enjoy the the ideation and the creation process of getting from here's an idea that's nothing to here's a, you know, because the UPitch app that we're creating right now, what I want to do is I want to turn that into $1 billion global business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So my thing at the moment is, you know, I was bankrupt less than 12 months ago. I want to go bankrupt to billionaire in 3 years. Yeah. So it's a ballsy move. Yeah. Lots of people are going to think I'm a dickhead for thinking it. Yeah. They can watch as well, along with the people that wish me well.
I love it.
Yeah. I'd love people to watch the ride. You know, watch me do it fast or watch me fail. Yeah. It's going to be a ride, whatever. Yeah. And I'll take the love and the hate.
Do you think you perform better on under the pressure?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that coming from extreme sports that you did, or you just think you're naturally that way, wired that way?
I think pressure's an important thing, because I believe this, me certainly, and I think a lot of other people, not everyone's the same, but I perform best in a absolutely backs against the wall, guns against the head situation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm always going to push forward far better. What I think is a really dangerous place to be, for me and for most people, is to be in the comfortable middle.
Yeah.
You're just earning enough money. Things are just about all right. You know, maybe you can't have everything that you want, but you're sort of doing okay. But you've got to work quite hard to keep that okay situation. Yeah. It's very, very hard to take time out of that almost okay soft middle to focus on doing your side hustle or doing a business or anything like that. So I think for me that's dangerous, and I think backs against the wall
Pushes you.
It's almost like, because it allows you to focus on what's really important. You know, you're looking for, because I think where things get complacent, it's one of those things where it kind of takes your mind off of things in a way. Whereas I think when you're sort of in that situation where the pressure's on, you go, okay, this is exactly where my mind should be focused, and this is what will allow me to make the most optimized decisions.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I feel that's kind of, because it also kind of gives you that definition of what really success is and what is your why. And I think that's so important. Something I wanted to ask is sort of when you're navigating business, marriage, children, and when you're finding balance in all of that, what's your kind of core center in sort of saying, okay, well, this is my definition of success. How do you find balance in all of that, from going less than 12 months bankruptcy, I want to become a billionaire? How do you create that balance in your own life as well as navigating all of everything else?
I think there's a couple of different questions there. So there's the piece about how do you find the balance, and then there's what defines success. So I think if we look at what defines success first, from my perspective, I interviewed a guy in the States. He's a property guy. Interviewed him. It was on Rodeo Drive. We were doing some social media stuff for UPitch. He was a really, really nice guy, very, very successful, very, very chatty. And I spoke to him, I asked him the same question, and I loved his answer, and it really, really resonated. And it was the fact that for him, success was being able to do what you want, when you want, with who you want to, where you want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, I take that on a lot of different levels. You can take it on the top level of, let's the three of us all go skydiving tomorrow. We'll hire a private jet and we'll go and do it in Switzerland. Yeah. Okay, so that's sort of the extreme version of it. Yeah. And I'm not saying that that's what I instantly want to do. However, I think that was pretty cool. You know, if we could just go and do that would be great. And I'd feel pretty successful if we could do that. Come on, lads, we'll just go and do it. My shout. Yeah. That would be great. But at the same time, I think it's not right for everybody. Everybody doesn't want that,
Mm-hmm.
but they have different versions of that. It might be, I want to be able to go out for a really good meal and go to a show with my wife on a Friday night after I've had a working week, and then go cycling on a Sunday with my friends. For some people, that's their equivalent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. For other people, it's that they do a job that they love. You know, so they're doing what they want, where they want, when they want to. They just love the job. So that is success. So it's the same high level definition, but it means a lot of people to a lot of different iterations of that to different people.
What would be your specific definition of success? How you define success for yourself?
Well, but, yeah, you put me back on the spot now, haven't you? Really, I thought I'd answered the question. I'm probably skirting around it to some degree.
Is that skydiving tomorrow, or
Yeah, it probably is more. You know, I like money. You know, I don't think there's any shame in that. You know, I like doing good things. I like doing exciting things, and I like having control of my own time. That's probably the key point. It's less about the money.
mm-hmm. The experiences?
It's much more about experiences and having control of my own time, not having somebody else
Mm-hmm.
tell me I need to be there at a certain time unless I want that.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, you guys said I need to be here at a certain time, but I want that. You know, that's a choice of that I'm joining in with. Whereas, you know, if I got an employer who's telling me I have to be somewhere at this time or else, it's like I'm really pissed off.
Yeah.
You know, that's my definition of anti-success, or failure, I suppose. For me personally.
I completely agree, because I think having freedom is the human experience, and I think so much of where we're told what to do and how to be and how to act and how to behave, within reason, but I mean, it's such a key thing that I think people want more of, really, is, and I don't think that's I don't think it can get more real than that, to be able to say I want to be in control of my life and make the decisions that I want to do, because really when you're working, it's such a big proportion of your life. Why not do it on your own terms? Why not build your own success apart from building someone else's? That was always such a big motivator for me as well, was sort of saying, well, the level of input I can put in, why not put that where I can benefit from that myself, instead of having to sort of, you know, be given a bit of money in order to survive, to pay on a planet which really no one really owns, you know, and then you're sort of sucked in on this system, and then you're on the wheel and you're chasing it. And actually, I think when you say, like,
The wheel
we've got,
never stops.
why
It gets quicker by the time, though. That's the worst part.
You have to keep getting fitter on the wheel.
Totally. And it's nuts, because, you know, where you're sort of looking at human life, it's like, okay, you've got to work for this proportion and then retire at that age and then enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, why not have that all sooner? And also, yes, it might be a wild ride and ups and downs, but isn't that what life is anyway? So I think there is a level of, you know, we're only here to, why not risk it? Why not live a life where it's like, instead of thinking of what could be, try it and see what happens.
Absolutely.
Because
try it. That's for our business partner Russell. Try it, because he has a phrase, and it's sort of transformed my approach to some things, actually, which is when we're discussing different ideas, you know, and you've got your idea and I've got my idea, and we're going round, and obviously you think your idea is better than my idea, and I think my idea is better than your idea, and he just has this phrase, and try it. It just kills any difficulty, and it's a great phrase, and I've taken it as it's his phrase, but I've taken it as my own now. When we're sort of in discussions, if somebody else has got an idea and it's almost, you know, the right place anyway, just try it, because if it doesn't work, that's not working, and then we'll try my idea, or we'll try mine first and then try your idea. But rather than batting it back and forth. Yeah, we'll just try it.
Mm.
You know, and it's a great phrase.
Going to the question of finding balance in life and trying to cultivate, because obviously work is such a big part in building businesses and having these really exciting moments. How do you find balance in order for you to be more optimal for the decisions that you make?
It's a good question. I think I've always been pretty committed to the conventional working week.
Yeah.
Yeah. So weekends have not always, but typically have been about family. Likewise, you know, evenings really always about family. You know, my wife and I spend pretty much every waking hour together, which is great most of the time. Occasionally it's not, but generally that's great. But I think that gives a lot of balance. You know, you've got all sorts of people on social media these days, and they'll talk about the fact you know, if you're not working 700 hours a week, that you're nobody. You know, if you're not getting up at 4 a.m. in the gym, you're nobody. You know, you've got to beat it out at every corner. I think you need a good night's sleep.
Mm-hmm.
You know, more as I've got older, I think it's become even more obvious that actually going to bed at a sensible time and waking up early, you know, is good, and it's good for the body. I think, you know, eating well, you know, proper single ingredient type foods. If it doesn't have a barcode, it's probably good for you. Yeah. I think that's really, really important and massively underrated, particularly looking at food that feeds your microbiome. You know, if it's fermented, I'm there. You know, because that stuff's going to treat you well. And I think a lot of business decisions come from the gut, literally, and I try and feed the gut accordingly. So that I think that gives balance, and exercise. My wife and I will generally always walk the dogs every day, at least 5 or 6 kilometres, something like that. So that's a good solid hour out in the sunlight, you know, because if you can get some sunlight on your skin and get some fresh air, I think that's really important. And you know, just spending time with your family and friends.
I wanted to also ask a question, because I feel like, well, you building a billion, a company that's worth £1 billion, let's just say. Is there, because people like to use a word burnout left and right. Do you ever experience that? And if you do, how do you deal with that? Or spending time with your friends, spending time with your family, having a healthy diet, going to the gym helps to prevent that.
Yeah, I think those things all help prevent that. I think burnout is a real thing. I think it does happen. You know, I'll still, you know, whilst I talked about, you know, resting in evenings and weekends, I'll still undoubtedly do things on, you know, I'll be messaging people on my phone, I'll be looking at things. And, you know, I spend a lot of time on my phone. It's, you know, it's the most amazing tool that the human beings have ever had. So, you know, people telling me it's bad for me, just, you know, that wears me out. It's just use the tools, you know. There are times when it undoubtedly it's antisocial. You know, it's a barrier to personal interaction. I get all that, but it's an amazing tool. So you know, take advantage. If you don't, you're at a disadvantage. I think in terms of, sorry, just getting back on thread, because your question was,
do you experience burnout while building the companies?
Yeah. So
and how do you deal with it?
I think really in terms of burnout, I've only really experienced that primarily as much as I can remember you know, when really when I lost everything
Yeah.
last time, and then and the burnout probably came because I got cancer,
Yeah.
or the cancer came because I got burnt out. Don't know.
Yeah.
But you know, so the throat cancer I had 30 lymph nodes removed from my neck. I had a massive scoop of flesh removed from the back of my throat, back of my tongue, some of my soft palate. So for weeks when I drank water, the water would just come straight back out my nose. So that was pretty antisocial. So I was probably burnt out after that, but it gave me an incentive to get strong again. And in getting strong, then I'm starting thinking about new business ideas. Had some good ones, some which were probably less good. But then when we came up with U-Pitch, we just knew that was absolutely the right thing.
I'm really inspired by you and your partner Dell building businesses together, and navigating a marriage in itself is tough, and 3 children, and then also managing a business together. How do you find time in your relationship and in your business working relationship to make them both successful?
Yeah, it's undoubtedly I'd be a liar if I said it wasn't a challenge. And it's been made a lot harder in the last 12 months, particularly because Dell's recently had a massive brain tumour removed. And that was a series of seriously life-threatening operations. And prior to the operations, the doctors have said, I'm really surprised you haven't just dropped dead anyway.
Yeah.
Because this brain tumour was the size of my fist, right?
Insane.
You know, right in her head. And the challenge over the last 12 months leading up to that was that she'd had a big personality shift, albeit incrementally changing very slowly. But by the time it actually happened, we're all like, oh, now I get it. You know, because because it happens so slowly, you don't see it. And I feel like now I've got my wife back, which is amazing because I love her to bits. And it's been a ride.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Do you both, because it's amazing the way you talk about it, you both, it's almost like you have this real drive and sense of purpose and this sense of like, I'm not fucking going anywhere. We're getting through this.
Yeah.
You know, we've got through all of this, and I don't think that mindset just happens. I think that's experience and life, and life gives you challenges, and it's how you deal with it.
Yeah, I think in particular to your point there, I suppose, given that we've lost it all twice, that would have broken up most marriages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to keep the family together was obviously a massive thing, you know, and for Dell to stand by me through that, because really they were both my fault, without a shadow of a doubt. Those things she didn't have anything to do with those factors. So she had a lot to put up with in that respect, and she's stood by me through that, which is amazing. So thank you.
Have you ever done it without her?
Have I ever built a business without her? No, I mean, because, you know, we've been together since I was 18, 19 years old.
Yeah.
So it's always been sort of split tasks, if you like. I mean, Dell's very much in the ideation stage and comes up with the core concept, and, you know, I'm more on the day-to-day execution. But, you know, she's always, everything we do, she's always looking at different elements of the business and always helping identify where the problems are and how to fix the problems. Because once, you know, in starting a business, you've got one big problem, is what's the problem we're trying to solve with the business. Once you start the business, it's what problems do we have in the business and how do we solve them? How do we make the business better? Because you make the business better, the customer experience is better. You make the business better, the company culture is better. You know, solve other problems and you make more money. So everything's about iteration.
Mm.
You know,
Mm.
you do something, you make it better. You check, you rinse and repeat. You know, constant iteration.
I wanted to touch a bit on the death threats. Can you expand on the story and how did it come about?
Yeah. So this comes in a long way around to the bankruptcy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so when we lost everything the first time round, we'd borrowed some money, and the business had gone pear-shaped before we paid it all back. I should have just gone bankrupt at that point,
Mm-hmm.
but I thought I'll do the honourable thing. I'll stay with it and work through. I lost more than anybody else out of that process, you know. But I thought, no, I'll stick with it. I'll do that. So then we built the education business, which was so essentially we had 2,500 schools in the UK and the US that was using our SaaS solution.
Mm-hmm.
So it was software as a service for schools to communicate with parents. So schools to text message parents and text message students. We had mobile apps that allowed them to communicate with parents and students. And that was a brilliant business, 5-year annuity contracts. We ended up selling the business for 80 million quid,
Mm-hmm.
$80 million, sorry. And that was after we'd done the failure. Yeah. So as we built that business up, I had no money to start that business. So I had to start that business with another friend, borrowed some money, gave them some equity. So when we sold that business, I didn't end up with as much of it as I needed to pay everybody back and have a good chunk for myself. So I thought, right, okay. Over the period leading up to that, over the last 20 years, I traded the stock market quite a lot,
Mm-hmm.
quite actively, and I made a lot of money over that period. But when we sold the business, part of there was some sort of intriguing bits with the exit, but essentially I put a load of money into the stock market. I was day trading it, and I was doing quite well to start with, and then I wasn't, and it went badly very, very, very quickly, and we lost everything. And my objective was grow the money that I'd got out of the other end of the business into enough to pay everybody back, yeah, including myself, because I'd lost everything, and then move on. Problem was I lost everything again. I'm big on risk.
Yeah.
I overdid it again. My fault, absolutely my fault, you know. And the people who gave me death threats, now I know why they were pissed. Yeah, I get it. Yeah. However, you know, they put it with me. It was a risk, you know. Game over. I should have gone personally bankrupt. Lesson to everyone: if you're in a hole, yeah, just go personally bankrupt. Yeah, you can just move forward. In America, it's so much easier. In America, bankruptcy is not seen as this big stigma,
Mm-hmm.
this sort of terrible thing. In America, there's lots of VCs in the US. They won't even give money to people if they haven't gone bankrupt, because they don't know what it's like being in the hole.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know how to climb out of the hole. They don't know what to do when their back's against the wall. They want risk takers who are prepared, who are strong enough to get back up. Yeah. In the UK, it's like, oh, they've been bankrupt.
Yeah.
Don't talk to them. You know, it's like, it's bullshit. Anyway, after this happened with the stock market, I was just like, fuck it. I've got to go bankrupt. I've got nothing left. You know, literally nothing left. We were very, very lucky. You know, you find out who your friends are.
Yeah.
In that situation, and my daughter was at school with a really good friend of hers, her best friend, and her parents are sort of getting on for being billionaires. I didn't know them very well. We were friends, but didn't know them very well. And when this happened, because we, again, for the second time, we lost the house, lost the cars, kids out of private school, everything. And they got a phone call. Sorry, I'm a bit emotional about this. Who got a phone call and they said, "We've got a house you can live in." You know, so it's like from absolute zero, get that bloody call, and it just completely bailed us out of the shit. So you find out who your real friends are.
Yeah, it was one of my questions, is really identifying those that have values the same as yours in difficult times, because I think it's really easy for people to champion people that are doing really well, and that all of a sudden they're your friends. But I think when it's the difficult times, people are very quick to jump ship and go,
"Oh yeah,
I was telling him you shouldn't have done that." You know, and I think people are very quick to follow what's good in that sense. So I can only imagine how maybe now you're very quick to realise and sort of who you spend your time with, who you give your time to, you know, where you share that vulnerability and who you share it with. Because, you know, I find sort of as you sort of navigate unprecedented times, people will either stick with you or not.
100%.
And I think that's the difference between knowing who your friends are and who aren't, and who's not. And I think a lot of the time, especially now, I find people like to be around lots of people. You know, you see people at the pub and they've got like pictures with their 20 mates. But you know, if you're really feeling shit, who's that one person that you're going to call that's going to be like, hey, it's okay?
I've got this theory where your real friends are what I call 3 o'clock friends. Yeah, they're the ones at 3 o'clock in the morning when you ring up and say, "I've got a problem." They're the ones who jump in the car.
Love that. Yeah.
Because if they don't, they're not your real mates. They might be friends, and I'm not calling people out if they won't do that. I'm just saying they're not your real friends. Because we all know you've probably, you know, you've got that many real friends.
Yeah, a handful.
Yeah, literally a handful. If you've got more, you're either extremely lucky or talking bullshit. Because I don't think many people can actually support more than half a dozen really good friends.
Because the friendships,
emotionally,
absolutely,
yeah,
totally
the friendships
agree.
they have to be maintained as well. Is a I don't want to call it a job, but it requires a lot of
it's effort,
time and effort, to maintain these relationships. And if you don't maintain them, you just meet them for a drink on a Friday night, then it's not really a maintenance of that friendship that you have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's, and I'm not dissing the concept of a broader friend base who are not as committed as that, you know, because we're all friends with lots of other people as well. And there's some people I'm friends with that I really probably wouldn't want to get up at 3 a.m. for. I might do at a push, but you know, there's half a dozen people that you'd absolutely, you know, jump up there for. And I think it works the other way around. But there's a lot of people who will pretend to be a 3 o'clock friend when they're not, and those are the ones that you don't want.
Yeah. Do you find sort of navigating health impacts, having children, that shaped your level of risk a little bit as an entrepreneur, or do you think you always had that self-belief where you were like...
Yeah, it does shape the level of risk. But obviously, you know, even up until recently, I was still taking high risks. But in reality, everything is into what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
You know, so with UPitch, we're all in on that again. But I also, if you actually look, if you analyse some of the biggest and best business minds, lots of them have got tons of businesses, but they made the money in one.
Yeah.
They didn't make the money in tons. And, oh yeah, I had 20 businesses and they all did great. No, they had one. They were absolutely laser focused and committed to it. They made a shit ton of money. And then they went, right, need to take this money and do some other good stuff. Oh, and that failed and that failed and that failed. But we've still got loads of businesses making loads of money.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's very few people who genuinely make loads of money by having loads of businesses that they start.
For sure. I think there's that level of, okay, I've made money, now I can diversify and I
Yeah,
can
absolutely.
have different
And that
pillars
works.
of income. But I think in order for you to get to that point, it requires, I'm going all in on this. And a lot of the time it takes everything that you have, and you kind of have to have that level of sacrifice in order to go in all in on that one thing. I think it's amazing that you and your family do that as a collective. And I think that having that support sort of as a whole probably motivates you more to go, yeah, we've...
Yeah, 100%. I think it's probably, you said the family going all in. Obviously, with the kids there, to some degree, they're coming along for the ride. But you know, they're entrepreneurial in their own right as well. I mean, like I said, we do the sort of the dinner table approach, and our eldest son, he's 26. He's a filmmaker. Shout out Morgan. So he does podcasting as well.
No way.
And he's got a number of business ventures that he's got on the go at the moment. And we've recently had the discussion about focus, because they're all doing all right, but you know, with absolute focus, one of them will do amazingly.
Really well, yeah.
You know, because he's very clued up. He's very sharp, and he understands commerciality.
Yeah. What sort of attributes do you try and share and insights with your children in order for them to sort of become... Because I think as an entrepreneur, you're very open-minded, and the way in which you open yourself up to people allows you to sort of understand your own self in a way. So what kind of insights do you sort of share with your children on the basis of your own experience that allows them to sort of create success?
They probably see a lot of everything that goes on,
yeah,
you know, secondhand, and like secondhand smoking, you pick lots of that up, don't you, naturally. Yeah. I think all our kids, they're all quite stubborn in their own way, in that, you know, we'll suggest things and come up with ideas with them, and they'll always go no, and then you'll find sort of 6 months later, or a year later, or 18 months later, they happen to be doing that, which is great, because it's not about us imposing our ideas, it's us desperately trying to share our learning, so that they can save some of the effort. However, you've got to learn your own problems, haven't you? You've got to have your own failures, and that's really important, you know, because if you keep telling the child don't fall off the wall, you'll either make them fall off the wall, you know, or they're not going to climb up in the first place. So you've got to allow them to run with it. But Morgan, as an example, you know, he is turning into a great entrepreneur in his own right, which is, you know, I'm very, very proud of all three of the kids. But on an entrepreneurial level, he's taken that next step, because he's the elder one. You know, Bronwyn, she's at university. She's studying economics, and she's got a real talent for that. And, Theo, our youngest, he's currently in the gym all the time and riding his mountain bikes at international downhill events. So it keeps him busy.
Amazing.
What are you the most grateful about?
I think I'm most grateful for the family, you know, and that they're all stuck with me through my ups and downs, through our ups and downs, because they've had to ride it with us, you know. But I think that's really important though, because they've seen the great times when we've had loads of money and we've had supercars, and and we've done great stuff and gone on great holidays, and they've seen the downtimes when we've shopped in charity shops and we've sold all our furniture, and they've come out of the school they were in because they've had to, and you know, we don't have those cars anymore, you know, and all that sort of thing. And they've probably had the same sort of friendship issues where there's certain friends that don't look at you the same way.
Yeah.
So those lessons, whilst they're probably really, really hard, probably really valuable.
Totally.
I bloody hope so, because
Yeah.
I've put them through them. So I hope they are valuable. So we'll see. We'll see. But it's certainly at the moment, you know, I would say they're valuable learnings.
Yeah. Matt, where can people find out more about you and your work?
I'm on LinkedIn, Matthew Smith. UPitch app, download it. It's going to be out in about a week, so that'll be super exciting for people to go and look at. And you know, or alternatively on Instagram, Matt Smith UPitch.
Thank you so much for coming on the
Thank you so
podcast.
much.
It's been a
Yeah.
pleasure.
No, it's been great. Lovely to
Lovely.
chat. Really nice to meet you both. So thanks for having me on.
That was amazing.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Matt.
And we're out. You're amazing, honestly.